Yo, 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 yo. What up, Instagram? Instagram live land. All the folks out there. So want to do a real quick super facts for y'all. Actually, it's gonna be pretty cool, but shouldn't take too long. Normally I say that super facts be going crazy long, but this one will be short. But I just want to use this super facts brought to you today by who? This homie. The homie who gave me this comic book up in Sacramento. Put together the ill like samurai situation. Avery White. You can check out his comic book. It's called Heroic. You can hit him up. I guess you can find him on the ground. Find him online. Got some good situations in here. So make sure you be on the lookout for the homie Avery White. His comic book. It's called Heroic. He hit me with this when I was in Sacramento. So shout out to the Kings. So today's super fact is brought to you by Avery Wright, his new comic book called Heroic. So basically, I just want to use it to be real informative about what's happening over the next couple months in Lupe Fiasco land. And who better to kind of tell you about that than Lupe Fiasco himself, who is me. He is I am him. So for a lot of y'all that know, we got a tour. We got a couple tour. I'm going out on the road, actually starting February 8th. I'm gonna hit the road and I'll be on the road all the way up until around June or something like that. So for a lot of y'all, it's a dream come true. For a lot of y'all are still upset that I'm not coming to your particular city. So hopefully we'll clear a lot of that stuff up on this super facts about the tour, because there is something weird about this tour that I want to make sure that people are understanding, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback on the social medias about people asking different questions about the tour. What is it and what is not. All right, so let's just start with all the dates, right? So from February 8th all the way until June 8th, I will be on the road. It's not like a bunch of dates, but it's a nice fair amount for an old man like myself. So the first two dates are February 8th and February 9th, and those are both in Colorado. February 8th is in Denver at this place called Summit, and February 9th is up in Aspen, up at Belly Up. And those are just regular Lupe Fiasco shows. I'll be performing songs from all my albums, mixtapes, requests, just kind of a good old-fashioned pajama jammy jam with yours truly. Yeah, so February 8th and 9th, Denver and Aspen, Colorado. It's just regular Lupe Fiasco shows. I say that as people who've never been to a Lupe Fiasco show. I have so many albums that on my shows I try and pull at least a few songs off each album and perform for folks. That's the kind of the gift and the curse of having so much music. But those two shows are doing all the songs, right? All the albums, right? Or most of the albums and mixtapes and stuff like that. Now, from March 14th until April 4th, we are going back in on the Lupe Fiasco Food and Liquor Tour, right? For y'all that don't know, we've already done this show in Los Angeles and in Chicago. And what it is me just doing the album Food and Liquor from front to back. So from the first song to the last song. Not the leaked version of the album, not the deluxe edition, not the deluxe re-release with videos and extra unreleased songs. We're just doing the regular Food and Liquor album that everybody has from beginning to end. That's what that tour is. So when you see Food and Liquor tour and you see a me with the album cover from Food and Liquor, those shows, again, that's from March 14th, starting in Cleveland, Ohio, and then ending April 4th in San Francisco, California. Those shows are just Food and Liquor shows. We'll just be performing the Food and Liquor album from beginning to end. We will not be performing any other music from any other album or mixtape. It is only for food and liquor. So if you're a huge food and liquor fan and you want to come see that experience, now is the time to do that, right? If you come to Denver expecting just food and liquor, you will be pleasantly unsurprised because you will be getting hit with lasers and Tetsuo and Youth and Drogas Wave. You'll be getting hit with a bunch of that. And then also, if you do not like food and liquor, if you're not a huge fan and you're a huge Lasers fan and you like Show Goes On and you're a Drogas Wave fan and you want to hear some Cripple or you want to hear some Haile Selassie or some Wave Files. If you come to the shows that are March 14th through April 4th, you will not be hearing any of those songs. You will just be hearing straight food and liquor all night long, okay? So, starting March 14th, Cleveland, Ohio. March 15th, we're in Seattle, Washington. March 20th, we're in Brooklyn, New York. That show is sold out. And March 22nd, we have a second Brooklyn, New York show, which we added because the first one was sold out. Now when it's March 22nd, I think the 20th is a Friday and March 22nd is a Sunday. April 2nd, we'll be in Pomona. April 3rd, we're in San Diego, California. And April 4th, we're in San Francisco, California. All of those shows are just food and liquor shows, okay? So come out, expect to hear some food and liquor, and enjoy yourself during those dates, all right? Shout out to everybody who sold out the first Brooklyn show. It's going to be live. Okay, now after that, okay, starting May 28th. Let me put on my big nerdy glasses. Don't laugh, these glasses are huge. Jesus. Okay, here we go. Okay, starting May 28th. Yeah. All the way through June 8th. Okay. We'll be going international. We'll be going back to Europe. Haven't been performing in Europe in a very long time. And for you fans that got super excited when they announced this yesterday, we will be having 3 shows in the UK. So, and specifically in London town. And I would just like to read this off for you all now. It's just Lupe Fiasco European Tour 2020. Starts May 28th. First show is in Berlin, Germany, at a place called Astra. On May 29th, we're in Hamburg, Germany. On May 30th, we're in Cologne, Germany. And May 31st, we're in Frankfurt, Germany. So we got 4 shows back to back, which is crazy. Why don't they book it like that? I'd be dead on stage. But so May 28th, we're in Berlin. May 29th, we're in Hamburg. May 30th, we're in Cologne. And May 31st, we're in Frankfurt. So all those shows are in Germany. So if you're in and around Germany or around the way, and you want to check that out and you're closer to that spot, come on out to any one of those 4 shows. It should be live. June 2nd, we'll be in Vienna. June 4th, we'll be in Zurich. June 5th, we'll be in London at the London, UK at the O2 Forum. And then June 7th, we'll be in Manchester, UK at the O2 Ritz. And June 8th, we'll be in Bristol, UK at the O2 Academy. All right, so that's the European tour as it is right now. I get surprised every time I check my email with new dates and new things, so it may be more. Hopefully it won't be less. So for you folks that are out in Europe, want to come check out Lupe Fiasco, those are the dates. And this European tour, it is not a food and liquor tour. We'll be doing, really because I haven't been to London in so long, we'll be doing probably a ton of stuff in London. So if anything, I would say come to the London show if you want to see like a bunch of stuff, because I feel like I owe London. I haven't been there in like 10 years. So that should be very, very interesting. Haven't been there since Lasers, maybe even before that. So yes, if you're in Europe, we'll be in Germany for 4 shows, Vienna, Zurich, London, Manchester, and Bristol. You can get all of that information at lupefiasco.com. But just to reiterate, the European tour is not the food and liquor tour. Food and liquor tour is something that we just doing specifically for the U.S. right now, where we're just going and doing the first album from front to back. The European tour is full show, all of the albums and whatever people are rocking to and vibing to. No guarantees, but it's gonna be live. So that's that. Hopefully that clears up some things for some people who didn't know. If you can you pass the word to your peoples who are interested in getting tickets and kind of let them know what these shows are, and more specifically what they are not. The Denver and the Aspen show are just two regular grand old Lupe Fiasco shows, but starting from March 14th to April 4th, those Food and Liquor tour dates are just the Food and Liquor album from front to back, and then the European tour is me doing joints from all the albums, from my whole discography, yes, from my entire discography, all the albums. Okay, cool, that's that. Yeah, so the next super facts piece, about, I guess, yesterday, people really want me to do like interviews and podcasts and like talk to other folks in the public space. Shout out to Drink Champ, shout out to DJ Effin, shout out to Noriega, the legend, shout out to Joe Budden, and no one else on his podcast, but shout out to Joe. And shout out to like all the interviewers and journalists and the newfound kind of rappers who stepping into the podcast space and stepping into the content space, and some of the journalists who traveled over to the space. I think it's cool if you can get your money, if you can, if you get your journalistic rocks off, that's cool. That part. So I just want to, send support and love and go watch everybody's podcast. What's their name? Wallow and Gilly the Kid. They got $1 million worth of game podcast. Specifically the hip hop joint Swave Seva has a podcast. I think Math Hoffa has a podcast. I heard rumors that B.O.B. has a podcast. People just going podcast crazy right now. So check them all out. Enjoy them. I won't be on any of them shits. I'm not really into interviews like that anymore. I don't feel like I have anything to really add to it. I don't feel like I have, anything in the space, and it's not them, it's me. It's just the way I feel. At this point in time, I don't really want to jump out into the space like that. I just want to focus on music, focus on Sosa, focus on some of the other things behind the scenes. I'm not really interested in gabbing about, who did what to who and what I think about what in that manner through somebody else. So, I appreciate all of the love, and I understand the fans wants for me to see me get out there and maybe populate a little more in the public space. But as of right now, that's not really my focus. And I really don't like the press like that. I don't really like it like that. So that's just one of those things. I'm sure you see it with other artists who rarely do interviews or rarely kind of get out there in a real serious way. I'm sure everything that there's nothing really new in the podcast space that I haven't done before coming up. Maybe you just didn't hear about it or didn't see it, and I will push some of you to just go hit YouTube and Google Lupe Fiasco interview with Sway. I've had some wonderful interviews with Sway talking about all kinds of stuff in the culture, and a lot of stuff is still relevant because a lot of the culture is still the same. So a lot of my remarks, a lot of my thoughts and ideas about the way things are and the way things move that I'm willing to share publicly, at least with the fans. I mean, it's kind of already out there, and I don't like to be redundant or beat up the point too bad. But, if you're really interested in some things I said about something, I've probably spoke on a little bit of everything in hip-hop, who I think is dope, who I think is, not necessarily who I think is whack, because it's my personal preference. But, just little twos and fews about different things, politics and all that. My views ain't really changed over the past 10, 15 years since I've been in the space. So, for those who are itching to see me do battle with Joe Budden over some dumb shit, you will be sorely upset because it's not going to happen. But with that said, I don't like to limit my options. I learned that from Tavis Smiley, which is one of the last interviews that I actually did a long time ago with Tetsu on Youth, I think. he said, he's like, never say never. And I was like, you're right. So who knows what'll happen in the future. Maybe things will develop and I feel I'll get the spark to jump out there and start rocking. But as of right now, for the foreseeable, I'm straight. And you should be straight too. Cool. So that's that, yeah. The other piece that I kind of want to talk about, maybe get a little nerdy since I got my big ass nerdy glasses on. These are some progressives too, so I can like read and see and look down and see new stuff. And there's like a movie playing over here, and it's like wow. But these are like my backup glasses. I'm still waiting on Coco and Breezy. Shout out to Coco and Breezy to send me my new joints so I can look super flavorful. But something I did want to talk about that has to do with rap was hopefully to satiate some of y'all thoughts on what I think about certain things at present. And it's relative. I was thinking about the Grammys. I was thinking about some other things that have kind of taken place over the past like maybe 6 months in the rap space. And one thing that I do, if I can be macro about this and kind of speak about podcasts, one thing that I really do like about the podcast phenomenon that we're in right now is that it's led by rappers. Talib Kweli has his podcast. Again, I think Math Hoffa has one. Swave Seva just is starting one or started one. And you see a few other folks. Like I said, I think the word on the street is B.O.B. has one. I always felt that like at least as big as rap is, we were always missing certain things. We were missing kind of an academic structure, which other art forms have or have had the fortunate, backing from like some real heavy institutions. And when you go into these institutions and it's talking about rap, it's more like archives. I mean, there's certain folks like the Harvard Archive is pretty dope. There's other schools with archives. What was one of the reasons that we started SOSA was to kind of Society of Spoken Art, for y'all that don't know, to have like an academic, nerdy backbone, kind of like going to school for rappers, So we kind of started, we've been doing that for like 5 years. And there's a few other kind of programs that are like that. I think my brother Wordsworth, IT, has something like that. And there's a few other folks who have kind of hip hop, rap, kind of centric curriculums. There's other little curriculums within different schools that have like rap, people teach with rap, stuff like that. And that's great to see. And I hope that that's something that carries on. So in the journalistic space, it was always kind of like we never really had rappers, talking about rap, in the public journalistic kind of, not finna just languish all day over writing a verse, right? Or getting really into the intricacies and then calling up another rapper and be like, yo, let me kick this verse to you, tell me what you think. Not even to record it, just for the love of the sport. So you got, and the craft. So you got folks who are in that category. And they could be really good in that category, or they could just be getting by to make songs and sell records. You got below that, you got cats who just cannot rap, which is a reality for some people out there. They just do not have that. They may have the drive, but not the ability or the patience to hone their skills. They may have very bad reference points with their styling. Their styles don't really match their technical abilities. So they overdo certain things, but that's another conversation. And then in front of that, you got mid-range dudes who might play with a couple styles, play with a couple things, and reach certain levels of goodness, levels of quality, of elegance, but nothing to write home about, nothing that even rappers in that world are going to get super excited about, right? So even the rappers that are, and this is probably the bulk of rappers, like you can flip a couple styles, you got a couple, you can do a lot of the low-hanging fruit in rap, which is like similes and metaphors. All that shit is easy, right? And it'll be like cool for 1 or 2 listens. Then on that third listen, you like, there's nothing really special here. On to the next. And you find yourself with 1,000 verses, but they're all very milquetoast or very mediocre. Simply because you don't really, you're not really challenging yourself. Like to give a weightlifting kind of analogy, there's people in the gym who they could do 1,000 reps lifting 10 pounds, right? And you got a dude who's lifting 1,000 pounds one time, right? There's a difference in that. The dude he's doing one rep, he's got one verse, but he's lifted 1,000 pounds, right? Versus you had this other dude who's got 1,000 reps. He's been in the gym for like 6 hours, but he's only lifted 10 pounds. Right? So there's a lot of that kind of rap. And a lot of people kind of get confused, even rappers themselves. They don't know where they sit. Fans kind of don't know about it because a fan's duty isn't to get immersed in the world of rap, right? Again, rap's a very big place. A fan's duty is just to enjoy the space, participate in the space, buy tickets, talk shit online, that whole do the I call it like trading cards. Such and such is top 6, such and such top that, and they basically just doing a fantasy rap league type shit or their trading card shit, So that's kind of it's not their responsibility to really get deep into who's referencing who really did that verse, who really did this verse. That's not really special. I mean, it feels good and it may be impressive, but it's not going to be impressive twice or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times or 10 times or 20 times or 100 times. I mean, it's just cool for what it is. So there's rappers who don't know that, right? And this is where you kind of get, once you go above this is when things start to get a little funky. And where it really becomes like, really only rappers should be kind of talking about this in a real serious way. The people who really know the theory, who can practice it and apply it and critique it at depth, because they can bring to bear years of experience and years of study, right? Studying every single rapper, every single style from every single place at every single time. There's people who do that and do that consistently, and can speak to things on a much deeper level, where you get up there and you spit 100 bars and everybody's going crazy, and everybody who's going crazy is either fans or rappers who are in your same caliber. But there might be like 6 dudes who are super nice, who are like, I can do that in my sleep, freestyling on accident, right? And it's not out of ego. It's not out of them feeling that they better or elite. They just know that on a real practical side, it's not about the magic of like, I can just magically just do this shit on accident and then it comes out. It's like, no, you can practice and master that. Same way, you take somebody like Steph Curry. I mean, when he's on fire and he's hitting threes, that's not luck, right? He's practiced that. Like he understands distance and physics and aim and the weight of the ball and his where he needs to do and be biomechanically to make a shot arc in a certain way. He knows how much he does it when the pressure is off. He does it when the pressure is on. So it's not just by luck. He's just throwing up shots and hoping that they hit. He's putting some intention behind it. And so there's rappers who like, I'm intentionally writing verses this way or this complex or with this lift or this that. It's not left up to luck. And rappers can tell, right, who's getting lucky, right, and who's like, do it again, do it again, do it again. And when that comes into play, it separates the wheat from the chaff and the boys from the monsters. So hopefully that was a little backstory on that piece. Once you get above that is when you can really get specialized. Once you master a bunch of shit, you can do the low-hanging fruit blindfolded, literally. You can do all of the little tricks and turns, and you can reference. Like, I know I'm pulling this from Camp Low, from this joint. I'm pulling this from Action Bronson on this joint, who pulled it from Ghostface from this joint, who first did it around this joint in conversation with such and such and such and such, right? And I'm going to take a little piece of that and implement into this, and I'm going to mix that with a little Jay-Z from 96, and then I'm going to twist a little bit of Busta Rhymes from Extinction Level Event intro when he did this, and then I'm a like shit like that. And some people do that just naturally, like King Los, he just does the shit, and other people would take some time. It's like the difference between Ronaldo and Messi, right? Where they say Messi has it naturally, Ronaldo had to work for that shit. But pound for pound, I mean, they both monsters. Just their approaches was different. When you get into that real kind of upper echelon, very technical shit, very nerdy shit is what I have on these glasses, that a majority of you don't even care about, that a majority of rappers do not care about, but there is a class of rappers who really do, and I know a lot of them. Then you can really start to make these micro decisions, which is a word we use a lot at Sosa. These micro decisions. And really stand on, I'm trying to accomplish this very specific goal, which is going to require this amount of practice and referencing this set and referencing that set and literally staying away from this shit over here, which is a large part of it too. Like not being quote unquote poisoned by some whack shit and really just putting yourself in a space in the danger room of really high end technical shit to achieve a very specific goal, right? It's almost like this, again, to go back to like bodybuilding and weightlifting. It's like, yeah, my legs is big as shit and that's easy. And, you know, my biceps is huge, but it's this one little spot right here that I'm trying to get that only activates when I got this type of angle with the barbell like this. And I need to hit so many reps, like that shit, right? That Eminem shit. Right, was very like this little thing that I need to do to, yeah, right, or A$AP Rock shit to even put it on an even higher level than Eminem. A$AP Rock IT, right? In that world, you can start to make decisions where those decisions that you make aren't necessarily to sell records. It's actually probably antithetical. It's anti-selling records. It's anti-rocking the crowd. It's like you're going to lose people. Like I saw this comment on Boxton where they said Lupe is so good at rapping that he's bad at it. And I was like, that describes me perfectly. I'm so good at rapping that I'm bad at it because I broke out the other side of the shit and came back around to the point where the shit feels whack. But the shit is it's operating on so many different levels that it's just people can't relate to the shit, right? But I'm going crazy, and the rappers that are around me are sitting there dumbfounded, like this is some otherworldly shit. But below that caliber, it's I can see why people say that ain't nothing. It's reaching. He's not really saying anything. It's really whack. And you can say that about all the MCs that are up in that are in that kind of echelon of the craft, where they're doing such shit at such a high level that you missing what's really complex. They're sitting back giggling at not even at the punchline, but how they got to the punchline. They're sitting giggling and everybody's like more interested in that versus the punchline itself, which may come across as very basic, but the route that they took to get there is like, Jesus Christ, like this dude or this woman is amazing. And those moments are the moments that, you know, a lot of the high end rappers are really gunning for, right? So in that space, I like to call it evolution. It's evolutionary, right? There's rappers that are working at an evolutionary level, right? And it's to base it off kind of like science. Like there's certain animals and certain entities in the world that are they're either facing challenges that are so out of the norm. Like I think it's happening right now in a lot of spaces, say in the Arctic, right? Where you have global warming and ice caps melting and stuff. Like whatever you feel about global warming, let's not get into that. But there's certain spots in the world where there's these massive environmental changes. In Australia right now, right? These fires are just wiping out, you know, all of the, you know, plant life and animal life in certain sectors. But I can guarantee you that there's a few folks, and talking about plants and animals, that are adapting to that circumstance, right? This out-the-box challenge that they've never faced before in their lifetime. I'm not saying that the world hasn't faced it, but in their lifetime, maybe somewhere in the gene pool way back, there was a situation, that a group of them that faced this situation. But as of right now, they've never faced this, right? Like extinction level shit. And as long as they aren't driven completely extinct, they're going to develop new habits, new sensations, new fears, right? At this very bleeding edge of what's happening, right? So they're facing these challenges, not of them. They're not putting themselves in those situations, but these situations are coming to them, and they're adapting to it, and they're changing, and they may be getting stronger, right? They may be pushing the envelope of their species to be able to adapt to this new situation. It's called natural selection, right? And some people can, some entities will survive, and some entities can't, right? It may get passed down, this trait. If it develops to a new kind of genetic trait, it'll pass down to maybe the next generation, and maybe the next generation will never face that type of situation or circumstance, so they never have to use that gene, right? Never have to use that new habit or that new fear or that new whatever, or it doesn't get taught to them in a certain way if it's not genetic, right? It gets taught in a kind of a cognitive way. So that evolutionary level shit, right? That I'm challenging myself, or I'm being challenged to such a degree that I have to adapt to this in a radically new way. And in that is going to present a whole new set of solutions and problems. So there's levels of rap at the high end where it becomes this evolutionary practice where I am going to try to put myself into the hardest circumstance, give myself the hardest constraint, as we call them here at SOSA, the hardest constraint, and I'm going to try to achieve it, right? I'm going to try and do it. So it's this kind of self-imposed challenge to see if you can push past and adapt to and survive, overcome, and then habituate it, and then be able to repeat it. Like, I want to be able to repeat this, right? So you got people that are trying to do 6-layered entendres, right? 5-layered entendres, just wild shit. And what it takes for you to be able to even understand what that means first, and then to be able to do it, and all of the research that it takes. One of the reasons why a lot of rap is so milquetoast and is not evolutionary and is not really exciting for high level rappers, or it's not like impressive because dude came out and he did all of this shit, but the high level dudes in the room are like, for what? Like, that's you're basically just repeating a bunch of low level shit and putting it in a very confined space. So you're not really doing anything evolutionary. You're just kind of moving furniture around, right? You're more focused on design on a superficial level than as opposed to evolution on a more deeper genetic level, right? So you got folks who are like, like it's cool, but it's not really doing or developing anything new. It's not really challenging, right? And there's a whole lot of rap that is just that. It's just surface, it's just design, it's superficial, it's not evolutionary, because it really doesn't have a need to be evolutionary. There's no real marketplace for evolutionary rap or that process. SOSA definitely is, because we demand it from our ITs. But beyond that, there's not really a space for it. And there's not a lot of things in rap, again, kind of institutions, which push or challenge MCs the way, like, say, CrossFit pushes or challenges athletes, right? Or say Super Bowl is a bad example because it's a lot of luck in the playoffs. But say the Combine, right, pushes, or just an event that pushes the athlete to be, or the slam dunk contest, like those all-star 3-point contests, or Harlem Globetrotter type shit, where you have these events that push the athletes to kind of get to an evolutionary space, right? Or pushes them to up the ante constantly. The only thing that we kind of got like that in rap is EO Dub, end of the week battles. I know a lot of y'all think of battles. Y'all probably think of URL. URL isn't really challenging, right? It's not really like a challenge for the MC, and that's not to take a shot at any of the MCs in URL, because they're some of the most grand masterful MCs I've ever heard. But the structure of URL itself is not really objective, right? There's no win or loss. It's very subjective, and it's less about mastery. It's more about mastering specific styles, flourishes of styles that entertain the crowd and have been proven to work, right? And those things fluctuate. The thing that Math Hoffa did last month everybody else started to do it. Then Tay-Rock came in and flipped it a different way. Then everybody started doing Tay-Rock, and then it flipped from Tay-Rock because Swave Seva came in and did something, and that flipped. Then all that went away. Then somebody brought it back, kind of brought it back with a new twist and da-da-da-da. And not to say that that's not evolutionary, but not at the levels that I'm talking about. I hopefully kind of clarified earlier. But as an event, it doesn't really push the individual MC to really go, because they can go in there and just style it out as opposed to bar it out or whatever. So the only thing that I see that does that is EO-Dub, because half improvisational, where you have to do things on the fly and it presents you with these tough challenges and these other kind of things. If you're into URL, you probably will not like EO-Dub. But if you're interested to take a peek to see the difference, I cordially invite a lot of y'all to kind of see the difference athletically between like URL and something like EO-Dub, to get hopefully a better sense of what I'm talking about when I say this evolutionary space where rappers are kind of pushed and challenged to adapt to these kind of constantly changing unknown circumstances where it's either you live or die, right? It's not like you live to fight another day. It's like if you fuck up this routine, you lost, right? You don't really get that in spaces like normal battle rap, EO-Dub, King of the Dot, stuff like that. Not to say that the rappers aren't there and like super talented and super extreme. And a lot of them actually do operate in the evolutionary space. Folks like what's that dude's name? What's that nigga's name? Loaded Lux. Somebody like Lux. So anyway, that was that rant. You know what I'm saying? Just want to kind of give you rappers a little bit of rappers and fans, and like to see why with that type of, if you look at rap like that, you can see why certain rappers say the shit that they do, right? Why they not really, like, it was dope, but it wasn't like dope, because their set of references are so massive, and the things that they're pulling from, they can identify what the casual rap fan and either casual rapper will look at as being like something insane. But for them, it's something that they've learned in 1992, right? Have done it themselves and kind of just put it in their list, in their kind of like utility belt of things to be pulled out as needed. But they're they may be more focused in that evolutionary space, right? And then you come down from that, you'll have like rappers who are just trying to get to a point of learning enough stuff to even start to have evolutionary kind of approaches to their craft and to rap at that level. Then you got rappers who don't care, right? You got dudes who just want to play ball, but they don't want to go to NBA. They may not never make it, but they don't even want to go. Like, it's not even, they just play ball because it's the thing to do. And they stop there. You got rappers that are like that, who just play ball, who just play rap. You know, that's just what they do. They're not really interested in pushing it to any type of degree. They're happy where it is. And that's why I think a majority of the rappers are in the rap space is, and a majority of the critique around rap, a majority of the rating, the award shows, all of that shit is around that kind of middle big, status quo versus the extremes, right? And then way down under that, you just got dudes who doing it to just make money and don't really give a fuck, and you got dudes who just can't rap, right? I don't care what awards they win, how many records they sell, how many mixtapes they put out, how drippy they are. These niggas cannot rap. They're not good rappers, to put it like that. And that whole middle ground of rap will eat them alive if it ever came down to it. Not to say that people can't train up to become better rappers, but if you're using the objectives and the kind of scale that hopefully I presented clearly for you all here today, you'll see like people like that guy and girl cannot rap. They just doing some shit that they heard on the radio from somebody else who could maybe rap, but that's even debatable. So that's that piece. Last and final thing is the Grammys. Das Gramaras. So the Grammys are this week. Shout out to everybody who's nominated. Shout out to everybody who's going to win. Shout out to everybody they might be even giving out awards now. For y'all that don't know, the Grammys is not just what you see on TV. The Grammys gives out, I don't want to say thousands because I think that might be too much, but I definitely know the Grammys gives out hundreds of awards. So hundreds of awards. So that in itself should show you when was the last time you watched the Grammys and saw 100 awards being given away. You haven't. That's because what you see on TV isn't the full breadth of what the Grammys is. They give awards for music, for sound engineering. They give awards, all kinds of shit for every genre of music for the most part. Whether it's popular or not, there's chamber orchestra and all kinds, polka, all kinds of shit that they're giving out awards for. And sometimes it changes and sometimes it doesn't, but it's bigger than what you see. And even the televised awards on that same day, there's another huge set of awards that are kind of given away, which they have musical performances, and the whole shit is just more like a conference at a hotel than it is like this super over the top award show. Cool thing about the Grammys is that they give out you'll see live performances that you may never see anywhere else, and that's kind of their thing and what they've been kind of pushing, at least recently, is these kind of crazy collaborations that are quote unquote only possible at places like the Grammys. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it is cool. Not even that is kind of cool. Like, it's some cool shit. My relationship to the Grammys is somewhat superficial, but I mean somewhat deep. I have a more of a general understanding of what the Grammys mission is and what they do. It's a 365 days a year, 24/7 organization. It's not just the Grammy Awards. They do a lot of stuff behind the scenes for artists. They have like they lead a lot of policy in terms of like publishing rights and copyright shit and shit like that you as the layman might not even give a fuck about, but they're at the forefront of that has to do with music. One of the interesting programs is like, we just think of music of what we hear on the radio and what we see on TV or on YouTube or whatever, but we rarely think about live musicians, and not live musicians selling out at the Staples Center or performing at Coachella. I mean, like dudes who are they play the guitar 3 times a week at this dive bar type situation, and that's their bread and butter. You know, that's the money that they make a week, pays their rent. And what happens when those guys or gals break a finger or hurt themselves and they can't work? That's when institutions like the Grammys come around and actually have programs for musicians and artists to, if shit happens, you know, the Grammys is there to help them out, cut them a check and make sure that they're straight, etc. And the Grammy Awards is probably the most public facing event where the Grammys generates a lot of attention and a lot of money in certain aspects to help fund those programs, but they're constantly doing this shit all year round. So it's an amazing organization. I have no problem with the Grammys as an organization whatsoever. It's amazing. I think any musician should be a part of it. Whether you rap, play the flute, whatever you do, you should definitely be participating in some capacity or being a part of the Grammys. You know, the more people that they have that are positive and especially the new blood, not a bunch of, you know, the older folks is solid and cool, but a lot of you new musicians that are coming up, make sure you tune in to what the Grammys is doing, because I'm sure they're itching to have a lot of new blood in the space. And it's more than just what you see on TV. With that said, and remember, I've been nominated 14 times. I have 1 Grammy. I've been a part of different projects that have won Grammys and shit. I was the governor of one of the Grammy boards in Chicago, I think for like a couple years or some shit like that. So I have a rich, deep relationship with the Grammys. But remember this, ladies and gentlemen. The Grammys is not an objective measurement of the quality of your music, right? Maybe 20 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe certain categories, right? Maybe in orchestral, what have you, or maybe in jazz, right? But I'm even hesitant to say jazz because I know some jazz musicians that will eat me alive, right? Maybe in certain categories where you can tell who played that Beethoven symphony better. right? Or who perform that piece, that standard better, or with a new twist, or with a new energy, or new something like that to just put it above and beyond the competition, right? In their space. But I mean, it's really hard when you get into R&B and all this other kind of subjective stuff. The objective measurements, it becomes like a popularity contest versus a quality contest, or a quantity contest versus a quality contest. So for you all who look to the Grammys to be the marker for musical excellence in all categories, you have a problem. In certain categories, we can have that argument. But across all of music, no. That's not what the Grammys is. I don't think that's what the Grammys purports to be. And I don't think that's what the Grammy Awards are. Right? What I've noticed in the years that I've been a part of the Grammys, attending the Grammys, watching the Grammys, seeing the Grammys play out, seeing new waves of music come in and out of the Grammys, what you'll start to realize, at least for the televised portion of the Grammys, is that it's more than anything, it's a story, right? The Grammys is a story. It's a great choreographed story, right? With the same biases and intentions and goals of a really well-written novel or TV show, right? Fictional, right? It's meant to drive certain themes and concepts in society that are reflected in music, right? Whether it be emotional drivers, or making someone a hero, or paying homage to a particular person, whether they're deserving of it or not, according to you. Right? But in general, in terms of a general narrative, the Grammys is like, this is music's kind of take, music as a whole. This is music's take on what's going on in society, and this is what we have to say, right? As a complete entity, because you got rock, rap, jazz, all that shit thrown in there together. And it's not like the Billboard Awards or shit like that. It's purely based on album sales and chart positions and shit like that. The Grammys is a little bit more subjective, and because it's a little bit more subjective, there's a lot more room for play for pushing a story versus pushing just purely objective kind of measurements for that. And that's a good thing. It's a thing. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, it's a thing, right? You'll see a lot of times that a lot of the nominees are very much so signed to record companies. Even the ones who are really signed to record companies who say they're not, they're very much so signed to some type of major publishing entity or recording house or management team or something like that. It's very rare that you're going to see a pure independent artist get nominated in the higher echelons of the Grammys I would say across all the categories, right? Not just rap and other shit, like all of it. Right, so it's very much so tied to industry in a very direct way, and then you can see why, because industry puts a lot of money and attention and promotion and visibility into their particular artists. The Grammy Awards and the Grammy, and I'll say the Grammy Awards because it's not a bad thing, but the Grammy Awards is different from the Grammy institution, right? They put a lot of effort and money to get people out there. The Grammys wants to piggyback on a lot of that exposure, so they're gonna do business with who's the most exposed. That's just a great business decision. Again, if you're raising money to pay for Uncle Charlie's jazz band saxophone player who broke his thumb and can't play for 6 weeks, then do whatever the fuck you need to do to pay dude's rent so you're not living in the street, right? But understand that that's one of the realities of the Grammys. Right? It's not a hater's mentality. It's not like, I ain't getting nominated, so fuck them niggas, that ain't shit. It's not that. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just, that's just what the shit is. And there's some things that are in there which you can tell, like who's been popping this year, they're gonna get nominated. But they may or may not win, because the Grammy's really good at being a narrative, being a story, plot twists. And like, oh, you thought such was gonna win? Nah, it's enough for them to be nominated to get the story out. right, to drive this narrative that we have. So this year, if you think I'm full of shit, think I'm a hater, this year, do yourself a favor. Watch the Grammys through that lens. Just put a little Lupe Fiasco lens in part of your big ass glasses like me, and just like look at it for the enjoyment, and root for your favorite rapper or singer or artist or what have you. But take every kind of like 4 minutes, just kind of like stop and be like, what narrative is being pushed, right? Look at it kind of with that, and you'll see it actually makes the Grammys that much more interesting beyond just who wins what award. And you probably won't get as mad when your artist doesn't win, because you'll get to see the larger picture, the meta story that's occurring with the Grammys. So that's that. All right, that's all I got. I'm sorry for dragging on a while long. Remember, make sure you check out lupefiasco.com to be really clear on what the touring situation is. Again, we start April 8th in Denver. February 9th, we're in Aspen, doing just regular Lupe Fiasco shows. The Food and Liquor Tour, where we're only performing the Food and Liquor album, starts March 14th in Cleveland. March 15th, we'll be in Seattle. March 20th, we'll be in Brooklyn. That show is sold out. March 22nd, we'll be back in Brooklyn. That show is not sold out as of yet. April 2nd, we'll be in Pomona, San Diego, California on the April 3rd. And April 4th, we'll be in San Francisco, California. Those are all Food and Liquor shows. I'll only be performing songs from Food and Liquor. The European tour starts May 28th in Berlin. It goes from Berlin on May 28th. May 29th, we're in Hamburg, Germany. May 30th, we're in Cologne, Germany. May 31st, we're in Frankfurt, Germany. Glad we got at least one day off. Vienna, June 2nd. Zurich, June 4th. London, June 5th. Manchester, June 7th. And Bristol, June 8th. And that will just be a regular Lupe Fiasco show. It's not specific to one album. We'll be doing stuff from all the albums and singles and different things like that. So that was it. Appreciate y'all for coming checking out the Super Facts. Take off these big ass glasses. And I'll see y'all next time. All right? Peace. And much love to you. I'm out.